Welcome back to a new video. So this is going to be a new kind of video, and I figured it'd be kind of a fun thing, maybe not every week, but just whenever I feel like it, and do a full 32 team NFL power ranking. So this is obviously week 8 coming up, so I'm going to start at the bottom and then end at the top. Unfortunately, I am a Browns fan, and the way that I kind of approach this is not really looking at records, but to look at what team I think could beat what team. And when you look at the Panthers, I don't think there's really any team that they can beat in the NFL, at least, assuming a normal game. And the Browns, I think the only team that they could beat is probably the Panthers, and that's a little bit iffy. And the only reason I don't have the Browns actually last is because Jameis Winston is in there. If Deshaun Watson's Achilles hadn't exploded, I'd probably put them absolutely last because they haven't even got the 20 points yet. Watson looked terrible this year, but with the injury and with famous Jameis coming in, there's some hope. At least as a Browns fan, there's always a little bit of hope that he'll play a little bit better and look competitive. Just above them, we have the Titans. I don't really trust the Titans. I think that they are certainly probably a worse team than the Browns, but I think right now that it's almost interchangeable. They can almost beat them. A little bit above that is actually the Patriots. A lot of these bottom parts, you could really kind of debate who is, the absolute worst. Being a Browns fan, I'm down on the Browns a lot. From a technical standpoint, they probably are better than the Titans and the Patriots, but that's really about it. They're probably better than 3 teams in the NFL. So really, you could justifiably put it doesn't let me switch it, but I could justifiably put the Browns at 29, and that's really about it. You turn down the music a little bit. We go above that, we have the Saints. The Saints have just been losing every game. They haven't necessarily looked bad, but I think if they played any of these 4 teams, they're probably winning. And the Raiders are kind of in that similar boat. They're kind of like a mid team, and it's really difficult to kind of get an entire feel for, but all you know is that they're pretty terrible at football, at least with their quarterback problems right now. They never really had a good quarterback this whole year. Jets are kind of in a similar boat. Aaron Rodgers is very old and very washed, and even with Devontae Adams, they looked pretty bad. I could see this team playing a lot better as Rodgers and Adams get more comfortable playing with each other, but they're pretty much in this category, and it's kind of like this 26 to 22 section. And but the gray down here is like the absolute worst of the worst, and then the red is like you're pretty close to being absolutely terrible, but you might have played a little good in 1 or 2 games. The Giants are one of those teams that's like I could probably put all the way down here. They're a really hard team to tell because sometimes their defense plays really well. They just have such a terrible offense. Daniel Jones is such a bad quarterback that it's hard to really figure out where they should be. And so I have them one above the Jets, really kind of interchangeable in these 22 to 29. The only reason I have the Dolphins even this high with how bad they've looked is that Tua is going to be coming back, and I think that they have a chance, much like the Jets, of playing a lot better once Tua is there, assuming he doesn't dive face first into someone's knee to concuss himself again for the 52nd time. And the Cowboys are kind of in a similar boat. They could probably play better, but they're not really good right now. They beat the Browns earlier in the year, but they've looked pretty bad in a lot of games this year. Chargers right above that little red section there. I can't really tell. Like, their offense has been so bad this year, and they still have Justin Herbert, but they've looked decent in some of the highlights and some of the games, and they've kept games close and stuff like that. So they're kind of hard to tell because it's a lot of their offenses not playing as well as it could, and a lot of that's probably because they don't have any notable good receivers on their team. So it's hard to really move them any higher than that until they can really show that they have a better offense than even the Browns, because their offense looks pretty terrible, but they do have Justin Herbert, so it's hard to put them below teams that have really struggling even more so. And you have the Broncos. There, to me, it's like I don't trust their quarterback. I think he's bad. I don't think he has any I don't want to say redeeming qualities. He seems like a nice person. So it seems a little overly harsh, but I think they're due to lose some games, and I don't really view them as any sort of playoff contender. They're in a difficult division. There's a lot of other better teams. A lot of teams above this, I think, would beat them in a game. even if, and this thing is like, even if the Broncos have beat one of these teams, like I'm just kind of looking at it if they played in this current week. Looking at the Colts, they're kind of similar to the Broncos as far as how strong their team is. If Anthony Richardson, gets it all together, they'll certainly jump way up. But the chances are is that he'll, dive and break his shoulder again, and they'll drop back down unless Joe Flacco has some magic like last year. But they're one of those teams that the bottom could very easily fall out, or it could just get elevated to a super high level. I don't necessarily think that they should put Joe Flacco in, even though he played really well with them. He played really well with the Browns last year. He seemed like a really good quarterback still. You just kind of have to roll with Anthony Richardson because he is your future, and kind of live or die by Anthony's play. The Cardinals are really hard to predict as well because they've looked a lot better than I think a lot of people have thought this year, but they're still, I don't think, quite there to beat a lot of these better teams. The Falcons, kind of an odd team because they played really bad at the beginning of the year, then they had some really good games, and then they lost last week. So I think like with these teams here, they pretty handily beat most of these teams down the list. But the issue is playing higher level competition. I don't necessarily think that they are up to the task with that. But they're an extremely weak division, so they have a good chance of still making the playoffs because of how weak everyone. It's really just the Buccaneers in their division that are any sort of threat, and they are certainly a beatable team, even though I have them ranked up here. And we have the Eagles here. They beat the Browns last week or 2 weeks ago, and they just, I don't know, they look kind of bad this year. They're not really doing anything fantastic. Like with Saquon, looks good, but the quarterback play is leaving me some question marks. Same with Nick Sirianni. He's a kind of a questionable coach, even though he went to college at my alma mater. He just kind of seems like a goofball and not a good NFL coach. So I think they're being held back by their coaching right now. I think they have a lot of talent, so they certainly could play better, and they have played well with Sirianni, but I don't really trust them right now. The Bengals, I think that they're starting to figure it out. They played pretty bad last week against what my view is probably one of the worst teams in the NFL, the Browns. They managed to use some witchcraft to hurt Deshaun Watson, which, a lot of Browns fans are, not unhappy about, myself included. But they didn't look fantastic against the Browns. It's hard to say, like, their defense looked good because the Browns' offense has just been very terrible this year. So they got really lucky and didn't blow the game against the Browns. So you got to give them some kudos for that. But I really think that they're going to start playing better. They've been competitive the whole year. So it's hard to put them any higher than this because of their records. Not that great right now. But I think that they are certainly a team that's due to move up. The Rams, I kind of didn't know where to put them. I could put them a couple slots lower. They're kind of a weird team because they've been so injured, and they get these guys back, and then they have weeks where they look good, and then everyone gets hurt and they look terrible. So I think a lot of these teams like this orangish color, they fit perfect, where I don't necessarily think that the Bengals are 3 slots worse than the Buccaneers or the 4 slots than the Texans, but it's hard to really put one above the other. And when I'm going through all 32 of these, I'm trying not to spend a ton of time thinking should the Falcons be 17 or should the Rams be 17, because they isn't as critical. But we got the Texans up here at 11. They looked horrendous against the Packers last week, so you can kind of see some of the previews of the numbers up, or the people that are up there. The Seahawks are a weird team too because they have a better record. They're playing decent football, but it's hard to really put them above the 49ers. I think that they can beat a lot of these teams in this mid, and obviously the team's way at the bottom. But they're just to me, it's just kind of an odd team. I feel like they'll have a good chance of making the playoffs, but I don't really view them as a team that can make a deep run. But they play solid football, they have a good defense, and Geno Smith can make some plays. The 49ers is just purely based on how many injuries they have, if they can get healthy, if they can play well with all the injuries. It's just, they're coached well, that they seemingly just get hurt tremendously every year. And it's always disappointing because you just want to see the highest level of competition, but they just can never show it because everyone on their team just gets hurt. The Commanders I actually have pretty high. That really just depends on if Jaden Daniels is playing and if he's good. Marcus Mariota looked good, but it was against literally the worst team in the NFL. So you kind of hope that your backup quarterback could beat a team that is absolutely horrendous around the board. But the Commanders have played well this year. They handily beat the Browns earlier, and they had the worst defense in the NFL, and the Browns still couldn't score any points against them, which is comical. But they played well this year, and I think with Dan Quinn, I think they just have a good all-around team. I think that they certainly could fall off. They're a team I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped way down and kind of been like a 14th, 15th ranked team in a power ranking like this, simply because they have a rookie quarterback. And I don't know if their team's particularly young, but tends to be rookie quarterbacks don't make the playoffs for one, or have long pushes into the playoffs. So it wouldn't surprise me if they started to lose a couple games, but obviously have a really bright future with Jaden Daniels. I get the Vikings there. They've lost, I think, twice now. I'm not really sure. I just don't really believe in Sam Darnold. It's hard to really explain it because he's played well this year, but I view someone that hasn't been successful several times in several different places as someone that potentially is going to start playing worse and having worse games. And I think that's going to be the Vikings' limiting factor, is the fact that they just have probably an above average quarterback at right now, but Sam Darnold could very easily start playing a lot worse than a lot of these teams down here. I could see them dropping similar to the Commanders or the Seahawks into this like mid-range territory, as some of these teams, maybe the Eagles and the Bengals, start playing a bit better. Same with the Texans. I view them as a team that could really jump up into this top 10. If we go up one more slot to, if I can find, there we go. We have the Steelers. I don't really necessarily have an issue with the Steelers. I know they are the rival of the Browns, but I'm pretty sure Mike Tomlin practices witchcraft to make his quarterbacks play well. I think I keep waiting for them to play bad, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that they could end up being a 10 or 11 win team. I don't really view them winning more than 11 games. That would be pretty shocking. But I think 11 wins or 10 would be probably pretty close. 11 definitely, but 10 probably pretty close to getting them into the playoffs. They just play solid football, and if they can keep running the ball, then I think that they will just continue to win games, which it's just kind of weird. Just kind of weird that you can win with two terrible quarterbacks, but that's what the Steelers can figure out. So as long as they keep managing that, Justin Fields has shown enough to where if Russell Wilson starts to play bad, or if he gets hurt, that he can step in and play average football, which is apparently all the Steelers need. Any other team plays with average quarterbacks, or just average people at that position, are going to lose most games. With the Steelers apparently practice witchcraft, so can't do much about that. Hopefully they start losing, and they'll probably end up being 9-8 after saying all that. Then we have the Packers right above them. I think they're a team that, if Jordan Love stops throwing interceptions, they could be even higher than this. But I kind of, seeing Jordan Love play is really good, and I think he's a generational quarterback. And I think with the way that their team is built, I think they just only move up, or really, honestly, like this 5, I feel like is where they're just going to be kind of hanging around until the playoffs, because I don't really view a team, as you can see above them, playing necessarily worse than them. Let's see if I can scroll up this way. No. All right, we're going to go up one more slot, maybe. I guess you get to see 2 at a time. I can't see the bar to see if I can get it to, no, there's no like up or down bar on the side, but that's all right. So I have the Bills at 4. Bills look good. They just got Amari Cooper, and he's a solid receiver, and he's going to really help out their offense. And Josh Allen has looked good this year. There's not a lot to really say negative about them. I just don't think that they're in that top 3 echelon of teams. I think that they have to start beating. If they beat a couple really good teams, then I think they could really jump above these people. I actually have the Chiefs at 3 because Patrick Mahomes is just been pretty bad this year. I think he has more interceptions than touchdowns, but they're undefeated, but they're not dominating in years past. And I get like they're undefeated, and there's some weight to that, but it's just hard to really look at Patrick Mahomes play and his statistics this year and say that the Lions or the Ravens aren't just better teams than them. Actually, I have the Lions all the way at number 1 because Jared Goff has just been so dominant this year. And they just look like just an all-around solid team with their offense and defense, their passing and running, and even like their kicking. Not that I necessarily believe in Jake Bates, but they have just a full all-around great team. I would really like, as far as like an NFC team that I would pick to be able to get to the Super Bowl and win, I would certainly hope the Lions would be that team. I really like their team. So if I had to pick another team besides the Browns, I would pick the Lions. And I really wish I could be a Lions fan, but unfortunately, I've been cursed being a Cleveland fan. So, but I do get to pick an NFC team, right? And I think in my brain, I can say that. And then unfortunately, the Ravens are up here at number 2. Lamar Jackson's just been really solid this year. Derrick Henry has played a lot better than I thought. I thought he would be much like many older running backs, just kind of washed and not really be able to do much, but he's been dominating. And I think as long as they're both healthy, Lamar and Henry, and they both keep playing well and Henry keeps running the ball well, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to struggle against beating them. I think right now, and this is, I've mentioned this a couple times, but this is how I'm approaching the power ranking, is not so much projections. There's a little bit of projection with like the Dolphins I had down there, like being, better than some of the worst teams. But when I look at these teams, like I feel like the Lions could beat anyone right now. And I think the Ravens could right now. I think the Chiefs still can. They can beat most everyone. But I feel like if they played the Ravens or the Lions, they would have a lot of problems. And I think the Chiefs will still play well, but I feel like they're due to drop off or be exploited in a way that shows that they are not as talented as they were in previous years. They just did get DeAndre Hopkins, but he's about 52 years old, so maybe he still plays great. I don't think it's a bad trade for them at all, of course, because DeAndre is still really good. But it's hard to really say if one receiver on there is going to suddenly make them better than the Ravens or the Lions at this point. But certainly, I think it keeps him above the Bills and the Packers and stuff. But you kind of hope the Chiefs start to lose because it's just good for the NFL not to have one Patriot type team that just wins it every year. And at least if Mahomes keeps playing the way that he does, I think that there's a good chance that even in the regular season, if he's keeps playing like that in the postseason, there's going to be a team that's able to get past them. At least that's the hope. But that's my week 8 power ranking. So maybe I'll do this again next week. Let me know what you think. I know it's not the good old lifting content, but it's a pretty... Thankfully, this tier list was pretty easy to make with the website that I found. But yeah, maybe do this one once a week as I'm feeling like it. Maybe every other week. But I figured it'd be a kind of fun little Saturday video. But anywho, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And I'll talk to you all in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.